Imagine this: a person in their 30s or 40s. They look healthy. They exercise. They aren't overweight. They don't think they have any serious medical problems. They wake up one morning, go to work, grab a coffee, and continue with their normal day. Then suddenly, they feel pressure in their chest. Maybe it's mild. Maybe it feels like indigestion. Maybe they think it's stress. So they wait. And sometimes, that decision to wait can be dangerous. Because here's something many people don't realize. A person can look completely healthy and still have significant risk factors for a heart attack. Heart attacks don't always happen to someone who looks unhealthy. They don't always happen to someone who is elderly. And they don't always come with dramatic, crushing chest pain. Sometimes, the process leading to a heart attack has been developing silently for years. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, smoking, family history, physical inactivity, unhealthy eating patterns, and other risk factors can gradually affect the cardiovascular system without producing obvious symptoms. Then one day, a plaque inside a coronary artery can rupture. A blood clot can form. Blood flow to part of the heart can become blocked. And suddenly, a life-threatening emergency begins. So today, we're going to answer a very important question. Why can seemingly healthy people have heart attacks? We'll look at the hidden risk factors. We'll talk about blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, smoking, stress, exercise, genetics, and age. And most importantly, we'll talk about what you can actually do to reduce your risk. Because the goal isn't to live in fear of a heart attack. The goal is to understand your risk and take action before an emergency happens. Let's start with one of the biggest misconceptions about heart disease. We often judge health by appearance. If someone is thin, they must be healthy. If someone exercises, their heart must be healthy. If someone is young, they can't have serious heart problems. But the human body doesn't work that simply. Some of the most important cardiovascular risk factors are completely invisible. You can't look at someone and know their blood pressure. You can't look at someone and know their LDL cholesterol level. You can't look at someone and know their blood sugar. And you certainly can't look at someone and know what's happening inside their coronary arteries. A person can have a normal body weight and still have high blood pressure. They can exercise regularly and still have high cholesterol. They can eat reasonably well and still have a strong genetic risk for cardiovascular disease. And someone can feel perfectly normal while some of these conditions are developing silently. That's why regular health checks matter. High blood pressure often doesn't cause noticeable symptoms. High cholesterol often doesn't cause noticeable symptoms either. An early cardiovascular disease may not produce obvious warning signs. So one of the most important lessons is this: don't wait until you feel sick to start paying attention to your heart. Knowing your numbers can be one of the simplest ways to understand your cardiovascular risk. Blood pressure, cholesterol, blood glucose, and depending on your age and risk factors, other tests your healthcare professional recommends. Your appearance tells only part of the story. Your medical history and your health numbers tell much more. To understand why heart attacks happen, let's briefly look inside the body. Your heart is a muscle, and like every other part of your body, it needs oxygen. That oxygen is delivered through blood vessels called the coronary arteries. When those arteries are healthy, blood can flow through them normally. But over many years, substances such as cholesterol, fat, calcium, and other materials can contribute to plaque buildup inside the arteries. This process is called atherosclerosis. In some people, plaque gradually narrows an artery. But here's where things can become especially dangerous. A plaque doesn't necessarily have to completely block an artery for a heart attack to occur. Sometimes a plaque can rupture. When that happens, the body may respond by forming a blood clot at the site. If that clot significantly blocks blood flow, the heart muscle downstream doesn't receive enough oxygen. And when heart muscle is deprived of oxygen, it begins to become damaged. That's a heart attack. And the longer the blood supply remains blocked, the more heart muscle can potentially be damaged. This is why a suspected heart attack is an emergency. It's also important to understand that a heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. A heart attack is primarily a blood flow problem. Cardiac arrest is primarily an electrical problem in which the heart suddenly stops pumping effectively. A heart attack can sometimes lead to cardiac arrest, but the terms don't mean the same thing. Understanding that difference can save confusion when seconds matter. Now let's talk about one of the most important risk factors: high blood pressure. Blood pressure is the force of blood pushing against the walls of your arteries. When that pressure remains too high over time, it can place extra stress on the cardiovascular system. And here's the problem. You may not feel it. Someone can have high blood pressure and feel completely normal. They can work 8 hours a day, go to the gym, take care of their family, drive to work, go out with friends, and have absolutely no idea that their blood pressure is elevated. That's why high blood pressure is often described as a silent condition. You shouldn't wait for symptoms before checking it. Instead, follow appropriate screening recommendations and talk with your healthcare professional about how often you should have it measured. And if you already know that you have high blood pressure, don't simply ignore it. Lifestyle changes can help. And when medication is prescribed, taking it as directed is important. Never stop or change prescription medication on your own without talking to your healthcare professional. The key lesson is simple. You can't manage a number you don't know. So know your blood pressure. Next, cholesterol. Cholesterol has a complicated reputation. You may have heard people talk about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. But cholesterol itself isn't automatically bad. Your body actually needs cholesterol for important functions. The problem is that certain cholesterol levels and patterns can increase cardiovascular risk. And once again, there may be no obvious symptoms. You can have high LDL cholesterol and feel completely normal. You can go through your day without pain. You can exercise. You can sleep normally. You can feel healthy. Meanwhile, over time, cholesterol-containing plaque may contribute to disease in your arteries. This is why cholesterol testing matters. Your healthcare professional can look at your cholesterol levels along with other factors such as age, blood pressure, smoking status, diabetes, and family history. The goal isn't to obsess over a single number. It's to understand your overall cardiovascular risk. And here's a useful principle. Something doesn't have to hurt in order to be harmful. Some of the most important cardiovascular risk factors are silent. That's why prevention begins before symptoms appear. Another major risk factor is blood sugar. Diabetes is a condition that affects how the body manages glucose. When blood sugar remains elevated, it can contribute to damage throughout the body, including the cardiovascular system. And once again, early problems may not always feel dramatic. Someone may say, "I feel fine." But feeling fine doesn't tell you what your blood glucose is doing. That's why appropriate screening can be important, particularly for people who have risk factors for diabetes. And if you've already been diagnosed with diabetes, managing it isn't only about avoiding complications years from now. It's also part of protecting your cardiovascular health. That means following the treatment plan provided by your healthcare team, eating a balanced diet, being physically active when appropriate, taking prescribed medications correctly, and attending recommended medical appointments. The bigger picture is this: heart health isn't isolated from the rest of your body. Blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, weight, physical activity, and smoking all interact with cardiovascular health. Now let's talk about smoking. When people think about smoking, they often think about lung cancer. And that's absolutely an important concern. But smoking also affects the cardiovascular system. It can damage blood vessels and increase cardiovascular risk. Smoking is a major modifiable risk factor for heart disease and heart attack. And that means something very important. This is a risk factor you can change. If you smoke, quitting can be one of the most powerful things you can do for your health. But quitting isn't always easy. Nicotine addiction can be powerful. So don't think of quitting as simply a matter of willpower. If you've tried before and failed, that doesn't mean you can't quit. It may mean you need a different strategy. Talk with a healthcare professional about evidence-based options that can help. And remember that tobacco exposure isn't just about cigarettes. Secondhand smoke can also be harmful. So if you want to protect your heart, creating a smoke-free environment is an important step. Now let's address another common misconception. I work out so I can't have a heart attack. Exercise is absolutely important. Regular physical activity can improve cardiovascular health and help manage several risk factors. But exercise isn't a magic shield. A person can exercise regularly and still have high blood pressure. They can exercise and still have high cholesterol. They can exercise and still have diabetes. They can exercise and still have a strong family history of premature cardiovascular disease. So don't think about heart health as one habit. Think of it as a system. Physical activity is one piece. Healthy eating is another. Not smoking is another. Managing blood pressure is another. Managing cholesterol is another. Managing diabetes is another. Getting appropriate sleep and managing stress are also important parts of overall health. The goal isn't to find one perfect behavior. The goal is to build a lifestyle that supports your cardiovascular system from multiple directions. And if you haven't exercised in a long time, you don't have to suddenly become a marathon runner. Start appropriately. Build consistency. And if you have medical concerns or symptoms, talk with your healthcare professional about what level of activity is appropriate for you. Chapter 8: Stress, Sleep, and the Modern Lifestyle, 21-30-24-00. Now let's talk about something almost everyone experiences: stress, work deadlines, financial pressure, family responsibilities, long commutes, constant notifications, social media, poor sleep, and the feeling that we're always supposed to be productive. Stress is part of life. You can't eliminate every stressful situation. But chronic stress can influence behaviors and health habits. For example, someone under constant stress may sleep less. They may exercise less. They may eat more highly processed foods. They may smoke. They may drink excessively. Or they may simply stop taking care of themselves. That's why stress management belongs in the bigger picture of cardiovascular health. You don't need a perfect, stress-free life. Instead, find healthy ways to manage stress. Go for a walk. Spend time with people you care about. Practice relaxation techniques. Create boundaries around work. Improve your sleep routine. And if stress, anxiety, or emotional distress is becoming difficult to manage, consider talking with an appropriate healthcare professional. Taking care of your mental health is not separate from taking care of your body. It's part of the same picture. Chapter 9, Family History. The risk you can't change. 24-00-26-00. Now we come to a risk factor you cannot change. Genetics and family history. If close relatives have experienced heart disease, especially at a younger age, that information may be important when evaluating your own cardiovascular risk. But there's an important distinction. Having a family history doesn't mean you're destined to have a heart attack. It means you may need to pay closer attention to the risk factors you can control. You can't change your genes, but you can work with your healthcare team to manage your blood pressure. You can monitor your cholesterol. You can avoid smoking. You can stay physically active. You can work toward a healthy diet. And you can manage conditions such as diabetes. So don't use genetics as an excuse. Use family history as information. If your parents, brothers, sisters, or other close relatives experienced heart disease at a relatively young age, tell your healthcare professional. That information can help put your own health numbers into context. Chapter 10. Age doesn't make you invincible. 26-00-27-30. Age is another factor. As people get older, cardiovascular risk generally increases. But this doesn't mean younger adults are completely protected. And it certainly doesn't mean that older adults should give up on prevention. At every stage of life, there are things you can do to improve your cardiovascular health. If you're young, don't wait until you're 40, 50, or 60 to start caring about your heart. If you're older, don't think it's too late. Healthy changes can still matter. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Chapter 11. Heart attack warning signs. 27-30-29-30. Now we're getting to the most important part of this video. Knowing the warning signs of a heart attack could help you recognize an emergency. A heart attack may cause pressure, squeezing, fullness, or pain in the center or left side of the chest. The discomfort may spread to the shoulder, arm, back, neck, jaw, or upper abdomen. Other possible symptoms include shortness of breath, cold sweat, nausea, lightheadedness, unusual weakness or fatigue, or a feeling that something is seriously wrong. And here's something especially important. Symptoms aren't always dramatic. Some people may experience relatively mild symptoms. Some symptoms may come and go. And symptoms can vary between individuals. Women may be more likely to experience symptoms such as unusual fatigue, nausea, shortness of breath, or discomfort in the back, shoulder, or arm, although chest discomfort remains a common symptom. So don't assume that a heart attack always looks like the scenes you see in movies. If you think you or someone else may be having a heart attack, treat it as an emergency. Call 911 in the United States. Don't drive yourself if emergency medical services are available. Don't wait to see if the symptoms disappear. And don't assume it's simply heartburn or indigestion. Emergency medical professionals can evaluate the situation and begin appropriate care. When it comes to a possible heart attack, time matters. Chapter 12. What can you do today? 29-30-32-00. So, what should you actually do with all this information? Start with the basics. Know your blood pressure. Know your cholesterol. Know your blood sugar when screening is appropriate. Know your family history. If you smoke, make a plan to quit. Stay physically active. Choose a balanced eating pattern. Maintain a healthy weight when possible. Get adequate sleep. Manage stress. And if you have a condition such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes, don't ignore it. Work with your healthcare professional to manage it. You don't need to completely transform your life tomorrow morning. Start with one change, then another. Maybe you start walking regularly. Maybe you schedule the checkup you've been putting off. Maybe you finally get your blood pressure checked. Maybe you make an appointment to discuss your cholesterol. Maybe you begin a smoking cessation plan. Small decisions repeated consistently can add up. Final message 32003330. So let's go back to our original question. Why do seemingly healthy people sometimes have heart attacks? Because looking healthy doesn't guarantee that every cardiovascular risk factor is under control. Some risks are silent. Some are genetic. Some develop gradually over years. And some are influenced by lifestyle and medical conditions. The good news: you don't have to wait for a heart attack to start caring about your heart. You can know your numbers. You can understand your family history. You can stay active. You can avoid tobacco. You can make healthier food choices. You can manage blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood sugar. And you can learn the warning signs of a heart attack. Because prevention isn't about being scared. It's about being informed. Your heart works every minute of every day, usually without asking for your attention. So give it some. And remember, you don't have to look unhealthy to have cardiovascular risk. And you don't have to wait for a warning to start taking care of your heart. If this video helped you understand heart health a little better, share it with someone you care about. Because sometimes, the information we casually share today could help someone recognize an emergency tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. And most importantly, don't ignore the warning signs. And